Friday morning, President-elect Donald Trump's gold shirt thug stormed into the West Palm Beach home of MSNBC Morning Joe hosts Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski, abducted the couple at gunpoint, and immediately removed them to one of his literally Hitler hastily erected concentration camps. I'm kidding, of course. I'm Steve Green with Bill Whittle and Scott Ott. This is Right Angle, brought to you by the members of BillWhittle.com. Gentlemen, in case you didn't see this, maybe you did, Mika and Joe spent apparently a nice time with Trump at his Mar-a-Lago estate, where they expressed several differences of opinion, that's according to them, for which Trump had them immediately sent to Gitmo. No. Again, I'm kidding. Scarborough said on Monday morning from his usual perch on the Morning Joe set, we didn't see eye to eye on a lot of issues, and we told him so. And Brzezinski added, what we did agree on was to restart communications. Now, gentlemen, before we continue here, please allow me to remind you and our viewers that literally everything is stupid. Bill, Scarborough assured MSNBC's shrinking legion of viewers, don't be mistaken. We are not here to defend or normalize Donald Trump. We are here to report on him and provide insights in these deeply unsettling times. But my question to you, isn't a couple of TV news hosts having a pleasant conversation with a politician just about the most normal and normalizing thing ever?
Well, they had a lovely lobster salad dinner with literally Hitler. I mean, who could complain about this? You know, I mean, he literally Hitler, and he had a nice dinner. They toured the grounds, I'm sure, and then he let them go the way Hitler literally let all of his political enemies go. And and it's like these, the ridiculousness of it is obvious to everybody that these people, she was one of the weepier ones, not post-election. She was one of the ones who was kind of like, we better get our ready bag, because if they call Pennsylvania for Trump, the helicopters will be out the window and they'll be rappelling down the side of the building, to take us off to the pre-execution detention camps, and then for them to go down there and have a pleasant evening and the situation on itself, Steve, is just plainly ridiculous. The question I have is, do they realize it's ridiculous? I know they're going to pretend. I know they're going to pretend like, well, we're still here to make sure that Hitler stays in his box of please and thank you, as Hitler, as Hitler literally did, but it makes you wonder. It seems to me like, I guess logic would say there's three possibilities. They went down there, and coming back afterwards, they thought he was Hitler because they thought he was Hitler before, and he came out still thinking he's Hitler. Or they came out realizing that even though he's not Hitler, they're going to keep talking about him as like he's Hitler. Or they came out of there and realized that they were wrong about the guy. Because you don't go down and have dinner with literally Hitler if you're one of Hitler's literal enemies who literally is trying to kill you and literally put you in literal camps. So I'm curious to know which one it really is. And I am inclined to suspect that they got caught up in their own rhetoric to some degree, and at the same time also knew it was their job to amp up the rhetorical temperature to make sure that every single Democrat in the country was scared enough to get out there and vote. So all I have to say is it looks bad for them, right? If they are making the case that this guy was in fact the moral equivalent of Hitler, it looks bad to go down there and have dinner.
Yeah.
And then escape alive, without having gunshot wounds or abrasions where you had to crawl through the barbed wire.
Oh, God. Actually, Bill raised a good point. Scott, MSNBC's moronic doer, they weren't the only ones to make this discovery about their actual place in, I don't know, what do you call this, a non-drama? Shortly after her loss to Trump a couple of weeks ago, some Kamala Harris campaign staffers, they went crying to Axios about the failed candidate's post-election conference call. They called it happy talk in this Axios story. Apparently what Harris said to her staffers during this massive conference call was, yeah, this sucks. We all just speak truth. Why don't we, right? There is also so much good that has come of this. But one staffer told Axios that Harris was, and this is a quote, detached from the reality of what happened. We were told the fate of democracy is at stake, and then the next message was, we'll get them next time. Which was, it's a huge letdown from literally Hitler to, go get them team next time. But this is the real letdown, Scott, isn't it? Because isn't that just how elections work?
I don't think they've always worked that way. I know there's always been political vitriol, and you can read some really nasty stuff even from the early 1800s and, among people that we refer to as the founding generation. So it's not like we've suddenly become the worst people on earth. We've always been the worst people on earth, and by that I mean we are the people on earth. And so, you've got humanity and our tendency to exaggerate and our tendency to make everything have a sense of urgency. So we've got to come up with something that doesn't just sound like what you're really doing, which is going down to your local fire station and casting a vote for someone whose impact on your life will be virtually negligible for the next 4 years. So they've got to amp it up at all times and make it seem like there's never been a crisis like this before. This is the worst situation ever. It seems to me, in my far distant recesses of memory, that Mika and Joe used to chat amiably with Donald Trump
up until he got the nomination in 2016.
Yeah. Yeah, he used to call it. And in fact, it's rarely been seen is the microphone or camera that Donald Trump didn't love. And, so he's never been reluctant to talk to anybody and used to be a regular feature on all kinds of different news programs. And so I think it's actually a good thing that they go down there and attempt some sort of at least establish a reset of relationship with an incoming president if they're going to be talking about him for the next 4 years. But I think part of the problem the media faces is at some point along the line, I forget who it was, I read this column where basically they said, look, we can't treat Donald Trump like normal anymore. This was when he was president of the United States. So we can't treat him like normal anymore. We've got to challenge every assertion that he makes. The Washington Post is going to chronicle every lie that he tells, and we're going to treat him as aberrant and constantly treat him that way. And what they did when they did that is they basically acknowledged that for years they hadn't been doing their jobs as journalists. They've been doing their jobs as commentators. And so what they were saying was, well, as commentators who are allegedly journalists, we're no longer going to pretend that we're journalists. We're just going to be pure commentators and go all in on commentary. And I would love to see a situation where they said, okay, from now on, here's what we're going to do. We don't have to agree with what Donald Trump says or does or who he appoints or actions he takes or whatever, but we are going to report it as it happens. If he says something that seems significant at a national level, we will report exactly what he said. If he does something, we'll report what he does, but we're not going to tell you how to think about it. Now, if Mika and Joe want to do their blather in the morning, and if anybody, fewer people every day are wanting 40%. To watch that. But if they want to do their commentary, well, that's what that is. And they should stop making it seem like it's a news show. Like I think there literally ought to be like a hard wall. Like you can't, during a commentary show, you shouldn't be able to just go, okay, we're going to throw it to Bob now, and he's going to do news, and then we're going to throw it back to Mika, and she's going to mouth off about it. That ought to be like two completely separate shows. I'm actually glad that they went down here to do this, although it's more helpful for them than it is for the president, the president-elect. They desperately need him. Donald Trump equals eyeballs. And they desperately need eyeballs. And so this was a completely self-serving gesture on their part. And if they're honest about it, someday when they might write their memoirs, they're going to go, you know what? We really were trying to drum up audience for MSNBC. But in reality, having dinner with Donald Trump was interesting. He's entertaining. He's funny. He treats us graciously and laid out a nice spread for us.
Oh, yeah.
Just like Hitler.
Exactly.
Now, did they? I want to on this because Bill said it so many times. Are they among the people who said literally Hitler?
It's become such a catchphrase. I don't even know anymore.
During the Madison Square Garden rally, they
yeah.
they
intercut stuff with the actual American Nazi Party, whatever, the Silver Legion, I think it was called, back in the 1930s. They intercut that, MSNBC did, with Trump's Madison Square Garden rally. It was absolutely revolting. And that's actually kind of the point here. MSNBC Morning Joe has lost 40% of its audience in the last 2 weeks, and I think it's because they just destroyed their credibility. You can't say literally Hitler, or words largely to that effect for an entire campaign season, then have them win and go, okay, whatever, we're fine now, without taking the audience that you had built up to expect literally Hitler, and then tell them, well, maybe it wasn't really all that all along. And Mark Halperin, the left-leaning journalist, warned back in October that he thought Trump was going to win and that it was going to lead to a mental health crisis in this country on the left, the likes of which the country has never seen before. And we see that on a small scale with the Harris staffers who feel betrayed by reality when he turned out not to be Hitler. And we see it on a larger scale on TikTok and Twitter with people shaving their heads and wearing their blue bracelets and all the rest. But I really have a message here for people like Kamala Harris and the Morning Joe folks. And I know you're trying to be the hero of your own story. You're out there saving democracy. Okay, that's great. Yeah. But I have some bad news for you guys. You're actually the villains of this story. You took tens of millions of Americans and you frightened them down to their very souls. If you want to know why there's a huge mental health crisis going on right now, it's because of what you guys did to try and win just one election. You're not the good guys here. You're not saving democracy. You're hurting people. Stop it. All right, that's your right angle on that, brought to you by the members of BillWhittle.com. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time, if Trump lets us.